Appoint names, and I use capital letters and I use little letters. Appoint names a location and has no dimensions. It is represented by a dot. Okay, so let's just put a point on our paper. Now, how do we name points? We name them with a capital print letter. So I'm going to call this one, it can be A, B, C, D, it can be whatever. We're going to call it point P. So just put a P there, capital, and it has to be, I'm going to draw an arrow and I'm going to say name with a capital letter. Capital letter. Left my L out there. Now, I've had people question this. You may think it's silly, but I just like to touch bases as much as I can. The point is not where the letter is. The point is where the dot is. The P can be any location around it. When you look at those two Post-its you got, there's lots of capital letters on those, and there's a lot of points on those Post-its. So you kind of see what we're talking about. Now, that's about all you can say about a point. Now, a line is a straight path that has only length and extends infinitely. See, then I jump into cursive there. And extends infinite. I misspelled it this morning, so I want to make sure I got all my letters in there. That's my L. Infinitely. What does that mean? What does infinitely mean? Infinite. Forever. It goes on forever, and then we'll talk about how we do that. Now, you remember the video you saw the other day where he was talking about, oh, I can't remember what they're called. What is it when you say like jumbo shrimp, like that one he was given? Oxymoron. So I kind of think the straight line is oxymoron because a line is always going to be straight. If it's curved, it's not a line. But here it says straight path. So I get it. It's like you take 2 points and you connect them and you put, to show that infinity, you put an arrow on the end of it. So draw me a line. If you have something, if you want to use one of those index cards for a straight edge, you can do that. I just use the lines on my paper. I'm going to draw a line. Put arrows on the ends of it. Now here's my question. And I think you would know this from Algebra 1 because, I mean, you graphed lines and stuff. How many points are on a line? That line right there. Okay, is there 1, 2, 10, 20, 30, 100? I mean, there's actually infinite. You cannot, if you can't name them all, you can't name every point on it. You know, like, here's a point, here's a point. Here's the way I say it. It's all these points like that, and they're squished together. And no matter how tight they are, there's one in between them. So there's infinite points on there, and we're going to identify 2 of them. So I'm going to call this point right here X, and remember, points are capital letters, and I'm going to call this one Y. Okay. So we're going to go over here. Name with 2 points. Now I'm going to tell you, we abbreviate a lot in geometry, and I'm going to go and tell you, I abbreviate point with PT, and I abbreviate points with PTS. So I'm going to put PTS, name with 2 points on the line. Then I'm going to put or, and we'll talk about the second one, but I don't want to overwhelm you too much. Okay, I'll give you an example like I gave this morning. Okay, you get this little newborn baby, and you say, now what am I going to name you? Well, you got to put a name on them. They got to have an identifier. So I say, well, that's a line, but I got to be able to name it, because what if I have 2 lines or 3 lines? You know, you can't have all these children that they don't have names. You can't have all these lines that don't have names on them. But I use the example, I like this one because it has multiple with it. William's probably a good one too, because there's multiple. You say, well, I'm going to name this child Jonathan. And then I say, well, I may call you John. I may call you Johnny. I may call you maybe JT. Maybe their middle name's Thomas or something. But it's still the same baby. It's still the same name. Now, as it is, this line has 2 names, and in just a minute it's going to have another name, but it's still the same line we're talking about. That baby is still who we're talking about. So, in this one, here's how you do it. You have to name 2 points on the line. So I'm going to put X, Y, and you will put a little line above it. Like I can give it another. As it is, it only has 2 names. I can call it XY, and I actually say, I'm going to put under it line XY. Now, those are capital. I didn't make them look capital. Now, when I want you to know why you're going to say it, I'm going to put it in quotes. So I'm going to put that in quotes. So if I say, what is the name of that? You're going to say line XY. Okay? Now, what about YX? Line YX. Same line, 2 different names. And you would say line YX. Now there's a third one. I'm going to go back up here kind of between these and put a comma. Sometimes because they're just easier to say, especially if you have a bunch of lines in a picture, they may give them a little well, I'm not so sure that it's cursive. I'm just going to say they're going to use a little letter. Now, what do I mean? I'm trying to see what I wrote. Oh, lowercase. You know, like your alphabet, but not the uppercase. I mean, this is uppercase or lowercase. Uppercase up here, capital, and then lowercase. So sometimes you will see the line may be called by a little letter, and it'll usually be close to one of the arrows. So I'm going to put a little A right there. Now, how do I know that's not a point? Because it's not a capital letter. And so sometimes, so it would be comma, and then you can just say, write A. If I'd say, what is the third name? You'd say A, but you would say it, if I ask you to say it to me, you would say line A. Okay, let's below this, let's go down a couple of lines, and I'm going to draw me a line that has infinite points, but I'm going to distinguish 3 points. I'm going to put point M right here, point N right here, and point P right here. Before we even start, I'm going to make your life easier, because I hate when it says name all the names, and I don't know how many there are. I will tell you there are 6 names. So name me, you know, like the John, Jonathan, Johnny, JT, whatever. I want 6 names of this. Now, I don't know you too well, and I don't have my list over here. I'll start with Naaman. I'll let him help me, so because I do know his name. So tell me what would be a good name for this. Oh, I know something we didn't do. I got to come back up here and finish that. I didn't write that on there. Don't let me forget that. Give me a name based on what we said right here. What would be a name of this line?
Mine, MN.
Awesome. So write MN with a line. Now, if I were you, I would immediately do which one? Naaman, what would you do immediately? If you know it's MN, then it's also going to be NM. Line MN. We'll get those both out of the way. Okay? Nash, you want to try one of them for me?
MP.
Okay. What is it? Is it a point, a line, a plane, a segment? Thank you. NP or MP?
MP.
MP. Now give me the one that goes hand in hand with that one.
Line BN.
Excellent. And I think I'm all looking right. I got Maylee back here somewhere. So Maylee's going to give me the third one. Yeah, N. You said N that time. Yes. I know they all sound alike, and especially when I'm behind this thing. NP, and then it would be line PN. Excellent. Now, if there's no letter at the end, you wouldn't use that as one of your names. Like if it had a little, usually I write them kind of cursive because I never write an L, just a regular L, because it looks like a 1. So I would put an L as a cursive looking so you could tell what it was. Now, we didn't come back up here and say this. So we needed to say name with 2 points on the line or a lowercase letter. Now, y'all did awesome, and I won't say it's because I did an awesome job, but a lot of people want to call it line MNP. Well, MNP is a line, but it can't be a name of it, you know, because it says 2 points. So if you got 20 points, oh my, it's going to have, how many different ways you can put 2 numbers together? 20. There's probably 30 or 40 or 50 of them. Usually, if it's a lot, I would say give me 4 of them or something like that. I wouldn't make you name all of them. I'm only going to ask for all if it's just a few, that type thing. Not an airplane, but a plane. A plane, oh, a bit crooked there. We'll underline plane, is a flat surface that has 2 dimensions. And those dimensions are, and I'm going to put them in parentheses, length and width. If you want to use a straight edge, I'm going to do it without it. I'm going to use 3 lines. And I'm going to just make a slanted line or segment or whatever you want to call it, like that. I'm just going to go across 3 lines. And then I'm going to go down and do the very same thing. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it and make them the same. And then I'm going to connect the sides. Now, yes, it does look like a parallelogram, but that's what we use to draw it. It's hard to draw things that have dimensions flat on a flat surface. This is how we're going to name them. You can do it 2 different ways. You can name with a capital script. Now we'll talk about that too, and I don't get all bent out of shape over it in terms of it being fancy. Script letter or 3 points. I'm just going to put PTS there, not on a line. Now that sounds, a lot of times the definitions are harder till I do them. Most of the time the name of a plane is going to be in a corner, in one of these corners. Now to me, a script letter is kind of fancy cursive. I'm going to call this one R. So you don't want to just put R, because if you make it like that, it's going to look like a point. See? So you got to be careful. The whole plane. Now I'm going to make my R kind of a little curly. Just if you put some little curls on it, it works for me. I'm going to do like this. I'm just going to kind of make it a little curly looking. You know, if you just curl the little bits of it, it will make me happy. It does not have to be fancy. So we could call it just write that, and we could say plain R. We don't use that one very much. Most of the time, we just do the 3 points that aren't, they can't be on a straight line, and that's simply because there could be more planes. We'll address that later on. There's a lot of what ifs in geometry. So on here, I'm just going to put letter A, point B, and point C. Those are not in a straight line. So I could call it ABC. You don't put a thing above it. You don't put a word in front of it. You can if you want to. And we would just say plain ABC.